officially closed.
Definitely, as the Kenyans were competing to win medals, our officials were competing to be the worst organized organization in the world. And I think we won more gold, and they won being the worst organized officials in the world.
Kenya's medal haul was then overshadowed by multiple scandals, and what followed was a probe into Team Kenya's participation in the 2016 Rio Olympics.
I feel at this point, there are some people who are considered much more important than others, because if myself I could not access the village, I don't know who else could access the village. And let me tell you, members, that most of the learners, if they could open up their hearts, they really got psychological disturbance.
In an effort to cool down the flares, the then Sports Minister Hassan Wario responded by disbanding the National Olympics Committee and ordering an investigation into the problems that the team faced while in Rio.
Disband the National Organizing Committee of Kenya, National Organizing Committee of Kenya, NOC, Olympic Organizing Committee of Kenya, sorry, NOC, with immediate effect, and transfer the responsibilities to Sports Kenya.
But others held the opinion that the Sports Cabinet Secretary was part of the said mess.
Maofficials kwa sababu wanafuata mtindo wa serikali ya Jubilee wanawaibia.
Is that Ali Wario must resign as Cabinet Secretary for Sports. And if he does not resign, His Excellency the President must relieve him of his duties as Cabinet Secretary for Sports.
After 5 years of court battles, Stephen Soi, who headed the Kenyan team to the Olympics at the time, has been sentenced to 10-year jail term or a fine of 103 million Kenyan shillings over the misuse of public funds. His co-accused, former Sports Cabinet Secretary Hassan Wario, has been sentenced to a 6-year jail term or pay a fine of 3.6 million Kenyan shillings over his involvement in the 2016 Rio Olympics scandal. Then the question begs, has justice been served? Moses Wahisi, KTN News.
Indeed, that is the question. Has justice been served? And I'm going to pose that question to my guests today who are joining me here in studio and also via Zoom. We have Kasim Tandaza, who's the Member of Parliament for Matungu, as well as Professor Gitile Naituli, former NCIC Commissioner. We are also expecting Professor Alfred Omenya, governance expert, to join us here and have, of course, a chance to contribute to the analysis that we're having here in studio. And, of course, that has been the biggest story in the country for a minute. Eating chiefs, that's what they're being called in the Standard. We're told the shame of the Rio scandal, and they're calling it dishonorable. Also on the front page of the Daily Nation, we have that how Rio got away with slap on the wrist. I'll start with you, Honorable Tandaza. What do you make of this story, and do you feel like justice has been served?
Thank you, and thank you very much to our viewers. Maybe I start by a slight correction. I'm the Member of Parliament for Matuga. Matuga is in Kwale County. When you talk about Matungu, it is in Western, I think, in Kakamega. So please, Matuga, Member of Parliament for Matuga. Having said that, I think this country, what else this country boasts is corruption. I don't have to repeat that. We have other issues of ethnicity. We have other issues of skyrocketing fuel, commodities, bungling of elections. You can name any other issue. But ultimately, the elephant in the room is corruption. When you compare those countries which have developed versus ours, if you compare us with this, so many repeated times, Asian tigers and whatever, it is all about corruption. Back here in Kenya, matters corruption. I don't think we are there yet in terms of handling matters corruption. One, this happened 5 years ago. 5 years ago is a long, long time to conclude such a matter. That is one. Two, there are so many other cases of mega corruption. I'm not saying losing 100 million is small money, but when you are comparing that into 7 billion, 8 billion, 10 billion and beyond, then that is where the problem is. I remember these mega corruptions with billions started way back with the golden bag and the other corruptions before, but nothing has happened. Now, we could celebrate that finally something has been done. But to me, talking about 100 million, yet the president has been record saying that you are losing 2 billion every day on corruption. That is a drop in the ocean. Remember, we were just handling this at the backdrop of the NYS scandal, the dam scandal, the recently Kemsa scandal, and I think up to as late the CS Kagwe had started talking about there could be some vaccine scandal and whatever. I'm holding with a bated breath. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time. So, to me, this is a very defining moment for this country. For surely, we are not going to improve our economy without handling matters corruption. And I've always put this one very straight, that it is upon the president of this country. Because when we compare to the other countries where we are saying corruption was brought to some manageable, well, I don't think there's a country which has zero corruption per se, but for a manageable level, then it is the president who actually put his foot down at one point, and successive governments therefore has followed suit in making sure that corruption does not skyrocket, do not hold medals in matters corruption. I think it was very interesting when the former MP was while they were trying to get medals in the field, the organizers, including the CS, was trying to get medal as the worst organized Olympics in Brazil. So, to me, from where I start, we are a long way to go. Corruption should be handled efficiently with the time limits, the way BBI was proposing. This matter does not actually need a referendum. I sit in parliament, I'm a legislator, it's high time. JLAC, the committee, which is trying to bring some aspects, those good aspects which were the BBI, to the floor of the House, that to be included, and I'm sure most legislators will support that amendment, so that we are saying matters corruption are given also a time limit. And I think those who will be having the responsibility of investigating, because sometimes the courts actually cannot proceed because of a short investigation. And this is as a result of corruption. Again, somebody actually corrupt the whole system, from DCI, from the anti-corruption. By the time it reaches the court actually has no serious case. They don't have enough evidence to handle. And where they have, we have seen cases where the judges themselves are corrupted to give some sentences which actually don't make sense. But, well, if it's a good start, let it be, but can the other matters also, the mega corruption scandals also be expedited, and Kenyans...
Yes. Okay, now let's get the view of Professor Naituli. What do you make of the time it took so long? Rio Olympics didn't just happen yesterday, and then we have the issue of the slap on the wrist. That's what it's being termed by the Daily Nation this morning, a slap on the wrist, and therefore, of course, he is walking free as one of the, as has been reported after paying the fine. What do you make of that? It did not happen in a timing that one would desire.
Actually, that makes corruption very profitable.
Okay.
You see, there is a theory in economics about rational beings taking decisions that maximize your returns.
Yes.
So if you have an opportunity like Rio to steal 70 million, and then you pay 3.6 million, you definitely steal 70 million. And
Yes.
you pay 3.6.
Yes.
Because that is profitable. So this is unfortunate. And there is a problem with this country because the corruption in this country is carried out by the state. The state, which is supposed to protect the citizens, is the one that fuels corruption. And until the punishment bites,
yes,
until there is a cost to being corrupt, corruption will continue, and this country will continue being on its knees. Because all what we are doing, all these taxes, all these fuel prices, we are paying the cost of corruption. We are paying for KEMSA. We are paying for AFIA 1. We are paying for AFIA 2. We are paying for NYS. All this suffering the Kenyans are going through is simply to finance corruption fueled by their own government. It's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. Professor Omenya is joining us also via Zoom. Could you tell us what you make of this? Do you feel like justice has been served with regards to the Rio Olympics scandal? Just as there is no perfect crime, there is no that of the eating chiefs in Rio Olympics. That's what the Standard is saying, led by then all-powerful chef de mission Stephen Soi and then sports CS Hassan Wario has been exposed. And of course, we're having Wario walking scot-free after paying that fine. Do you feel like justice has been served?
Well, I mean, justice has not been served at all. But I think, what we should be asking ourselves why Kenyans are actually, excited. This is to show that Kenyans had actually given up totally that any corruption in any government department will actually be ever dealt with and the culprit brought to book. It is instructive that we now have corruption and corruption cases in every single ministry in government, almost. We have corruption issues and cases in almost every single department of government. And we know that even where the evidence is as glaring as the sun outside there, we know that the DCI and CASA found it extremely difficult to provide credible evidence in the courts that can ensure that these culprits are actually brought to book. So in a way, I mean, Kenyans are a bit surprised and wondering what exactly is going on. That for the first time in 5 years, we actually have some people charged with corruption. Having said that, of course, the pattern is exactly the same as the pattern that has always been there before, where we actually know the thief. The evidence is clearly outside there for everyone to see, but then we use technicalities and legalities and so on to exonerate the thief, in this particular instance, Wario, and let him walk scot-free. Yet we know that he was actually the one who was in charge of this. And then, of course, normally the accounting officer is the fall guy, and so he, of course, has to also pay his rightful price, the 103 million. Yes, so definitely this is a good start, but the disappointing bit of it is that it follows exactly the same pattern that we've seen with so many other cases where the actual culprits of this, normally ministers, hide under the fact that they're not the accounting officers in those particular ministries. And then, of course, that weak argument is bought by the investigating arms of government, and then they're let to go scot-free. So that is a disappointment that where you could see his walking style after being charged. I mean, he was being boastful, really, that nothing has happened. It was a slap on the wrist. Yes, but at least something small happened, and maybe we hope that's a sign that maybe something a little bit bigger, a little bit better would actually happen. But of course, there's nothing exciting about it. There's the level of corruption, the fail of cases, and so on. Just remains the same. We are still disappointed.
Right, right. And it's actually true that it's actually a pity that this is exciting some Kenyans, because if you look at the grand scheme, as Professor Naituli has put it, the amount that is in question as having been swindled and the fine that he had to pay, unfortunately, they do not compare, and therefore it is rightly surmised in the Daily Nation as a slap on the wrist. Now, moving on, Deputy President William Ruto, who has been on a political warpath with President Uhuru Kenyatta, now says he is ready